What's going on, everybody, and welcome back for episode number 2 of Lock History from us here at Hawkeye Lock and Security. Last week we took a look at Egypt, Assyria, and ancient Greece, and if you're ready, strap on in because I'm going to take you to the Roman Empire and a few other countries in Europe today. Let's get it going.
All right, guys. First stop on our trip this week, Rome. Much like several other things in history, the Greeks and the Romans had their innovations and devices very similar. Small changes or improvements here and there, but at the start of the lock and key integration, the thought processes were very similar. Just like the Greeks, Rome's first major lock type were those with notched boltwork. A few of the improvements introduced were housing said boltwork in an iron case, and instead of just iron keys, they introduced bronze keys. Unfortunately, due to corrosion, there aren't many locks found to this day, but several of the keys have been found. One of the coolest and most interesting design aspects of the Romans and their keys were that they were often turned into some sort of jewelry. Whether that be rings or necklaces, they needed a way to keep track of them since togas didn't have any pockets. Kind of brings a whole new meaning to the term key ring, huh? The two most notable implementations of Rome's lock game was the introduction of the spring-loaded lock bolt and the addition of wards to a lock, or what's commonly referred to as a warded lock. Now, a warded lock is a type of lock that depends on internal obstruction to block the rotation of the wrong key. Designs would constantly vary, and there wasn't much of a standard. All it took to unlock the lock was a key that matched the same shape and size of the warding. During the rule of Julius Caesar and the explosion of the Roman Empire, the economy took off, primarily due to the commerce between merchants and politicians. This left both parties wealthy and gave them a reason to tighten up security. At the time, it was deemed great protection, and there are still warded locks in several old homes today, but primarily on just indoor bedrooms or closets. There is some evidence that suggests the Romans also invented the first padlock, but that's controversial because there are Chinese padlocks from roughly the same time frame, so credit for the invention goes back and forth. The need for locks lessened after the fall of Rome during the 5th century, as people had less they needed to protect. The few locks that were still used were often for those of noble position or wealthy merchants. Now, let's talk about a few other parts of Europe. In England, Germany, and France, the metal workers of the Middle Ages continued to make warded locks, but they made no major security changes. Their primary focus was actually making elaborate, ornately designed cases and keys. To them, locks became a work of art. Medieval and Renaissance craftsmen made improvements to the warded lock by using several interlocking wards and more complex keys. Unfortunately for them, though, many of the wards could easily still be bypassed. In France in 1767, a literary work titled The Art of the Locksmith was published. Inside were examples describing the lever-tumbler lock, although according to the essay, the inventor is unknown. As locksmithing progressed, locks were designed with multiple levers, each of which had to be lifted and aligned before the bolt could be moved to the unlocked position. In 1778, Robert Barron of England was credited with inventing the double-acting lever-tumbler lock, but he'll get talked about more in another video. During the 14th century, locksmith guilds became popular. In these guilds, journeyman locksmiths were required to create and turn in a working lock and key before they would be accepted as a master locksmith. Funnily enough, these locks and keys weren't actually designed to be installed anywhere. They were kept and displayed in the guild hall. Eventually, too many problems came from the locksmithing guilds as they controlled too many rules and regulations around being a locksmith. Guilds no longer encouraged technological advances and restricted techniques and service prices. This resulted in few significant security improvements during that time. One of the few and cool innovations that they did come up with, though, was that of the false or hidden keyhole. It didn't necessarily make the lock itself stronger, but you could say it helped keep the lock more secure by acting as a preventative or a theft deterrent. All right, you made it through another lesson. Keep it up because next week we're jumping into the history of locks in England. If you haven't already, make sure you smash that subscribe button, drop a like, and follow us on all of our socials tagged here. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.